So our presentation today is called How to Slack, a beginner's guide to the platform, creative connector, and then, that's, so we'll move to our pre-framing slide. So this is kind of really high, 150 feet, what we're hoping to accomplish today. So we're going to have our agenda, and we're going to talk through some of the really nitty gritties of the presentation. A slide that really talks about what is Slack, how to use it, benefits of Slack, and then, what some of those benefits are going to be. Signing up for Slacks and creating an account with Slack, joining a workspace. So these are some of the things that we'll do. So this is the pre-framing, and we'll move to our agenda. Perfect, thank you. So getting started with Slack. So we're going to talk about, what does it even mean to sign up? Where do you find to sign up? What if I don't have knowledge of how to sign up? What do I do then? So all that will sort of be in that sign up piece. Navigating the Slack interface. So, we're going to focus on what are some of the key tabs that you're going to see when you're in Slack. We'll talk a little bit about the difference between mobile Slack and Slack on your PC or Mac computer. Using Slack with a visual disability. So some of the tips and tricks along the way there, some of the really cool modifications that you can make to Slack in terms of themes and coloring. Communication in Slack, so everything from a direct message to a voice message to a huddle. And if those are words or terms that are not familiar with you, to you, hopefully at the end of our workshop today, they will be. File sharing and other integrations, canvases, and wrap up Q&A. So that's kind of our agenda for today. So without further ado, what is Slack? Let's talk about what Slack is. So Slack is a communication platform. It actually, fun fact, stands for Searchable Log of All Communication. Sometimes you'll see Slack spelt with S-L-A-C-K and sometimes just S-L-A-C. So that's kind of what Slack is. It's very much similar if you've used things like Teams or WhatsApp. It has similar features, especially to Teams. It has channels for organized conversations. So sometimes people really like Slack because what they find is your email inbox gets overflowing. You don't know where things are. It's hard to organize different projects and different groups that you're in. So Slack has some really nice ways not only to organize your communication, but to organize your tasks within different projects and communication. Direct messages for private chats. So very much like a Teams or a WhatsApp, you can direct message people on the Slack, both on the mobile app and on the desktop version. What's great about the direct messages is you can also send a voice note. So that's basically where you do a recording of your voice and then you send that to the person and they hear your voice, which is nice. It helps things be a little bit more personal and a little bit less sort of formal. Also really nice if you're providing information that maybe you're dictating and you don't want to worry about the spelling, so that voice option is a really nice alternative as well. So the benefits of using Slack, there's quite a few. It improves team communication. So I kind of alluded to this, but when you're working with a team and you're emailing back and forth, it can be really difficult to sort of keep track of things. Emails get lost. Also, depending on if members come or leave your team, emails can get sort of lost. The institutional memory can get lost if different people are coming in and out of groups. Whereas if an organization has Slack, all that stays in one central place. So kind of think of it as like a central repository. I'm on a board right now for a volunteer organization and we are using a G Drive, which is great, or a Google Drive, but when I leave, it's my G Drive. So what happens to the information? Whereas with Slack, all that would stay internally within the organization. And we'll get into this, but people are sent an invite. And then when a person leaves an organization or leaves a team, you can remove them from the Slack if it's no longer appropriate for them to be there. So that institutional memory piece, I think, is a really important feature of Slack. Streamlines project management. So you can actually set up reminders in Slack that tells people to do stuff. You can do calls within Slack. So rather than trying to, send out a Zoom link or a Teams link. You can all in your various group or in your huddle just make a call. And then at that point, you're able to be connected. The other benefit is you can have different channels, which we'll get into. But let's say you have a channel for everybody that's organizing the food at an event. You could have a food channel. You could have a channel for everybody that's organizing the promotion, so like a promo channel. So again, just quick and easy ways to organize information about a specific project or about a specific work group. Yeah, so like I said, integration with other tools. So whether that be file sharing, or whether that be things like being able to import a project into Slack. So as requested. So we'll talk in this slide about signing up, but before we do, just some benefits for a community. So certainly Slack is a really nice way. So a number of you are here because of creative connectors. So Slack is a great way to connect with other people within a specific community. So whether that's a disability and arts community, or perhaps you're connecting, you're doing some work with a volunteer disability organization, it's a great way to connect and build community. Within your community, you can do things like direct message. You can also look at work that other people have done. And it's a really great way too, to find out what other artists are doing or other members of your community. So in terms of signing up for Slack, you're going to create an account. There's a couple of different ways to do it, but you're going to create an account. You'll join a workspace. So probably if you're here today, you're going to be joining the Creative Connectors workspace. And then the initial setup. So when you get the invitation email, say you've signed up for Creative Connectors on the website, you'll get that welcome email. And in that welcome email that you get from Creative Connectors, you're going to see a button for opting into Slack. So when you do that and you opt into Slack, Alexia or Lindsay will send you an email invitation that says, you've been approved, and here's your invitation to Slack. And then you would click on that, and from there you would create your account. So you can either do it sort of after you've received an invitation from, in this case, the Creative Connectors team, but also you can just go on to slack.com and you can sign up and create an account or download the Slack app from your mobile store and sign up that way. So a few more things about creating an account. So like I said, you can visit slack.com and you'll enter your email address. Any email address is fine. And then you'll have to verify your email. So this happens no matter what, whether you sign up using that invitation that you get from Creative Connectors, or whether you sign up and you already have an account with Slack. Now, if you get an invitation with Creative Connectors, this happened with me. I got my invitation from Alexia. I already had a Slack account, so I was able to just accept the invitation. Then I was invited into that specific community or workspace. So either way, whether you are signing up or signing in, that's how it'll work after you get that initial invitation from Lindsay or Alexia. So joining a workspace. So you're going to, like I said, accept that invitation. So you'll see that email from Creative Connectors. Just make sure that you check your junk folder to make sure that you actually got the email and it didn't go astray. So when you receive that, again, you'll receive that invitation. You can also create your own workspace within Slack. Right now, today we'll focus mainly on the Creative Connectors workspace and some of the things within that. And you can also customize your workspace settings as well within Slack. So let's talk just a little bit about the initial setup. So you can personalize your profile. This really goes into things like putting your name that you want people to see on your profile, your pronouns if you wish. You can put a little bit of a photo on your profile if you wish. You can do things on your profile like set your status. So whether you're away, whether you're available, out of office, all of those things can be set in your profile. Notification preferences. So do you want to be notified when you get a DM? Do you want to be notified anytime there's activity in Slack? Do you want to be notified, for example, when anytime there's a new message in a group chat that you're in, or when in one of the channels, like for example, the announcements channel? when there's something new. So you can customize those notifications kind of like you can do with other apps on your mobile device or PC, just depending on how much information you want to have, and how much information is relevant. For me personally, I find it very overwhelming to be notified anytime there's activity at all in Slack. So I have DMs set. So DMs are direct messages set to give me a notification. And I also have the announcements set so that anytime there's a new announcement, I get like a little bell and it comes up and I can see the notification. And then you can also explore the welcome tour. So if you are new to Slack and you're somebody that kind of wants a little bit of an orientation, it will take you through some of the features when you first sign up for Slack and sign in. And it will kind of bring you to some of the key points that you'll want to know within Slack, like where the profile is, where the notifications are. It'll talk to you a little bit about what's on your home screen. So that's that welcome tour. On to slide 11. So kind of how to navigate Slack, the Slack interface. So we're signed up and we're connected to Creative Connector. So navigating that Slack interface. So you'll see there's a sidebar and a list panel. So that has things like your home, your more, your DMs or direct messages down at the bottom. Your message panel, so that's pretty self-explanatory, where all your messages are. This is group messages and individual chats, so just be mindful of that. You can also search that. I really like that search feature. So if I know that I've talked to Lindsay recently, I can just pop in her name and any message with Lindsay and I as members will come up. So whether that's a direct message that Lindsay and I have or a group message. The other thing I really like about direct messages within Slack is you can @ somebody. So it's a nice way of, if Lindsay and I are in a group and she's asked me to do something, instead of writing a long sentence that at some point says in the sentence, Elizabeth is responsible for organizing the social media promotions, she can say @Elizabeth Mohler, and I can see all those. So I actually know what I'm responsible for. It's nice because sometimes things get lost, especially for folks that might have difficulty processing large bits of text, but you can @ people, and I really like that. And then it pings up in their notifications so they can see it. I use that feature a lot to make sure that people are able to sort of have a sense of, what they've been tasked with. So pop to the next slide. So the sidebar. So this is an image of a sidebar, sorry, with all of the buttons shown in that image. So the workspace selector or the home button, the direct message button. So we've kind of talked about what that is. The activity. So that's kind of where all of your activity is. So that's your announcements, your notifications, your direct messages, kind of anything that you've been involved with, channels that you look at regularly. If there is conversations that you've been sort of I don't know if added is a verb. Those are in there as well. So it's pretty self-explanatory. That's where all of your activity is, and your more. So that's where you can do things like toggle between communities. So I think you heard me say a few minutes ago that I'm in, I want to say like 6 or 7 different communities. So that more button is where I could go to toggle between different communities. My kind of profiles is in there, so I can do things in there like change my status to away or change it back to available, and of course things like sign out, sign in, that kind of thing, and then that plus as well. Profile, which we've kind of talked about, everything that's in there in the profile section. I will say with profile, you can update things like name and pronouns. It's not sort of just when you set it up, but anytime you can go in there and update those things, because I know that's really important for some folks within our community. So the list panel. So there's an image of the sidebar here. And there's a list panel open to the home tab. And in addition to the get started page, the Creative Connector channels are displayed in this image, including announcements, community, and opportunities, support, and the daily read. And the channels is visible there too, and then the direct messages channel. So hopefully I did a good job of describing that image. And you can see that direct message is visible under the channels image as well. So creating and joining channels. So you'll see within the Creative Connector, we have several channels like announcements, which we've talked about. So you can also, if your administrator has allowed you to, you can create a channel. Certainly if you're doing this on your own personal Slack, you can create a channel. You just go into more and there's an option there to do that. There are public and private channels. This is really important. It sounds self-explanatory, but especially when you're creating a channel, maybe you want a channel for internal communication only. So folks within your team where you maybe talk about planning of events, or you talk about specific projects and you're wanting to specifically talk about maybe who you're going to invite or things that your public facing folks don't need to know about. But then in your public channels, you might have things like upcoming events or, social channel for things like games night. And then of course, threads to use are really helpful to organize discussions. So just like kind of probably a lot of, like an email thread, but being able to use that on mine, I can sort of stack the most important messages on top, and you can sort by like read, unread, high importance, sort by topic. So those are really useful ways to keep things organized around the specific projects that you're working on. So the message panel, we've talked a little bit about it, but it's my favorite, so we're going to talk about it more. So there's an image here. It's Creative Connector Hub, sidebar set to home, list panel set to community, and the message panel shows the most recent posts, and there is a messaging interface at the bottom. So composing and sending messages. So here you'll go to DM or direct message. You should see when you are in there, everybody's name that is available for you to send a message to. I generally don't scroll through everybody's name because I use a screen reader. It would take too long. So I do that search. I might type in a few letters of somebody's name. And then anybody with those first few letters will pop up and I can send them a message. Just be a little bit careful when you're doing this if you're using that search feature, because like I said earlier, if people are in a message or they've been added in a message, that will pop up there as well. So if I want to send a private message to Lindsay, I have to be really careful that I'm not accidentally tapping on a thread that we're both in and sending a message there instead. So I just give that note of caution to my screen reader user friends to just really listen to what it's saying. And make sure that you are indeed sending a private message if that's what you want to do. You can also add multiple people, again, by doing that search. You get the name of the first person that you'd like, and then you can go back up and there's an add button, and then you can tap on that and add more names to the message. And I feel like it's up to 10 on like the free Slack, but I'm not sure about the paid Slack because I don't have a paid Slack account. So formatting options, so kind of how you want your messages to look in terms of you can set it so that the first, when you're not in the message, but you're sort of seeing them all laid out there on the panel, how much of it is sort of displayed. I find it, for me, I don't like a lot of the text displayed, so I always choose like first line instead of first 3 lines. You can sort of format by color as well, color contrast there. You can do reactions and emojis. So it's the same sort of way you would on a computer or on a mobile device. For screen reader users, it's bottom left. If you're using a smartphone, specifically an iPhone, you tap on that emoji and your emojis will come up and you can pick the one that you want. There's also a reactions button. If you swipe right, and you are able to tap on the reaction that you want, kind of like with the new Zoom, you can do that as well. So using Slack with visual disabilities, just some kind of notes that we're going to talk about specifically. So using Slack with a screen reader, whether that be JAWS or VoiceOver, some keyboard shortcuts that I think will be helpful for people to know, high contrast mode and Zoom, and also just looking at ways to sort of customize your Slack setup so it's a little bit easier. On slide 16, which is how to use Slack with a screen reader. All right. So So just thinking about how to navigate Slack with a screen reader, Slack is compatible with JAWS, NVDA, as well as VoiceOver on a Mac and or on an iPhone or iPad. So there's a link here in the slideshow, and it actually hyperlinks directly to a really wonderful section on the Slack help page under accessibility that actually talks about some of the keyboard commands and the quick tips and tricks on how to use Slack with a screen reader. So if you have your slide presentation on slide 16, you should be able to see that hyperlink. And if you click on it, you'll be able to go right to that page. So, things like accessing messages and channels, you can do that by using your up and down arrow keys. You can also go between different communities with the F6 or using the control and arrow on a Mac if you're using a Mac. So I'll pop to next slide. So right here, we have a screenshot on slide 17, and it's the Creative Connectors channel, and it's open on the right. And in this image, you can see a little bit of a shape here that talks about how to access the shortcut menu. So also commonly used shortcuts. So again, I mentioned F6, the up and down arrows to get through messages. If you want to actually access a message, you can hit enter on it, then escape to get back out of the message or out of the conversation or thread. You can also customize shortcuts for efficiency if that's something that you want to do. And there's information about the specific nitty-gritty on how to do that in that Slack accessibility. So if you just go to the Slack homepage and look for accessibility, there's all kinds of tutorials there as well as on YouTube. So high contrast mode. This is really helpful. And this is preferences panel, open to themes, dark. Let me try that again. So you can see the screenshot here. It's preferences panel, open to themes. The dark mode is actually activated on this particular screenshot here. So what we're seeing there is an interface with black background and the text is white. So sort of the inverted contrast, if you will. You can enable high contrast mode in that preferences as well. You can adjust your zoom settings so that you get more or less text. This is a huge benefit, obviously, for low vision users. You can switch between those contrast modes. So you can have a white background or a black background, depending on what you want. As well, obviously, as making the font a little bit bigger. So communication in Slack. So we've talked about sending messages, but I'll just review. On the mobile device, you would go to the direct messages, which you can get to either on your home, swiping right through all of the channels using your iPhone, or on the bottom, there's a DMs tab. If using the desktop version, there's a direct messages, I guess, section that you would hit enter on, and that would take you into all of your direct messages. At mentions, I talked about this, but I'll just sort of repeat a little bit again. So with the at mentions, that's where you are able to at a person in a conversation. That helps, again, just to flag for somebody that they're supposed to do something. One of the things I discovered recently with Slack is there's a specific sort of template you can find for like meeting minutes or project organization. And when you at people in the meeting minutes, it shows up in their specific inboxes or messages. So that's really handy in terms of just reminding people that they're supposed to do something. You don't have to send follow-up emails asking people, could you do X? So that's a really nice feature within. So reactions and emojis we've talked a little bit about, but again, these are very much they're described. So when you put in an emoji, if you're a screen reader user, you'll get notified of what it is. But also, if somebody sends you an emoji, you'll know what it is. Back in the old days, we would not know what many emojis were. We just say emoji unless we did the old-fashioned colon right parentheses, but things have changed, so that's great. So sending messages. So you can see connector open, you can see that it's the community channel. Main channel is in the center, and the thread is open in the right, and there's a message input box, and it's visible below that main channel image. So composing a message, mentioning team members, and using threads for context. So again, we've kind of talked a little bit about this. But again, just to sort of reiterate, composing, you can go through the list or do the search function there. Also, if you receive a message, you can double tap on it if you're using VoiceOver, or hit enter if you're on the PC, and then you can type in your response and then tab to send or swipe right to send. So we've talked about this, but at mentions, grabbing attention, like a little alarm bell, hello, we want you to do something, notifying groups and a channel at it here. So that's a nice way to notify an entire channel. You can also manage your mentioning notifications. So I think I talked about at the beginning of the presentation how sometimes there's too many notifications. So you can actually turn that off in Slack. You can decide whether you want to be notified every time there's an at mention. I like it because, again, it keeps me accountable, but you might find, depending on the groups that you're in, that it's too much. One thing I strongly suggest you use with absolute yellow light caution is the at everyone. I am in a server where people use that a lot, and it's really chaotic. So unless it really is something everyone needs to know, just sort of bear in mind that that notification really does bring attention to everybody. And it can be really annoying if everybody's replying using that. So I would say just use with caution. So emoji menu, you can, on this description here, the message input box and the add emoji there is visible. And then you can see the community channel and the creative connector workspace, and the browser is focusing on that emoji. And so you can add a reaction and use emoji in conversation. So just to clarify for folks that may not know, a reaction is things like a thumbs up or a clapping hand, or I know that is a really popular one I've seen in Zoom, which is slow down or speak louder. So, and then emojis are pretty self-explanatory. So in case you're wondering like what the difference between a reaction and emoji is, they're very similar, but those are the difference. You can customize and upload emojis, which is kind of fun as well. Just, using your, there's a button there to do that. Using your phone, if you have something kind of like an avatar, I don't know if it's avatar, people create their own little emojis. Those are really fun. I've never done that with a screen reader, but I have seen people sort of create their own little avatars or emojis. I know somebody recently did one where they were sick. So what they did was they put themselves in like a full spacesuit with like a mask, and it kind of looked like an astronaut, but it was just like to say like, I'm wearing every bit of protective equipment today because I'm not feeling well. So that was kind of a fun one. So file sharing, this is really important. We talked about this a little bit. Uploading files, integrating with other tools, integrating with Slack apps, and using Slack apps. So these are just kind of some of the things in this next section that we're going to go through on file sharing. So uploading. So you can see the message input box here on my screen. The add attachment button is visible in the bottom left corner of the screen. You can drag and drop, or if you're using a screen reader, you would tab to add attachment, or on your phone, there should be a button that says upload. And then it says file upload button, and you can click that, and then you would just add files the way you would traditionally with any other program. You can also share files in direct messages and in specific channels if you have permission to do so. So that's a nice way too. You can just, again, add that in the channel, and then people don't have to go looking through your Google Drive for whatever specific thing it is. You can just paste in the link, and folks will have access to it right there. So integrating with other tools and other programs. So on our image here, we have the apps page here. And you can see that it's open in Slack, and the apps that are visible are Google Drive, Google Calendar, Zoom, and Trello. So like I mentioned earlier, Google Drive is quite a popular integration app with Slack. A lot of people will paste in links from a Google Drive right into Slack. People can click on the link and then they can directly edit right in that specific link, and it will populate into the Google Drive, or it will, the changes will be saved right in that Google Drive. So it's really nice that way. So Zoom, for example, is another really nice one. I'm in a group right now for teaching assistants, and we actually send all of our Zoom calendar invitations through Slack. We put in all of the meeting information right into Slack. People can click on it and you go right into Zoom. So that's really handy. Again, you're not searching your email inbox going, where is the link for that meeting? It's right there. And that would be a time where if you had a channel with everybody in it attending a meeting, you would say at everyone and then paste the Zoom link. There's also a really nice feature with Zoom for folks that might prefer to join on a mobile device that says, join our cloud meeting, one tap mobile. And that feature is really nice. Depending on how Zoom is configured, you may not have to enter a password. So that's nice if folks find it difficult to pop in that password. That might take care of that for you, just depending on your administrator for Zoom and how that's sort of set up. Benefits of integration, certainly convenience, not having to go to multiple places. So Google Drive, like I said, Trello and Zoom are popular integrations that people use quite a bit. Sometimes you'll see G Drive or Google Workspace. That's kind of the same idea as a Google Drive. Google Workspace is typically for organizations. I know a lot of not-for-profits use it because at least at one time, there was a discounted rate for not-for-profits that were using it. So that's probably why a lot of organizations tend to go with it. And also for people creating a Google account, it's free. So that's a nice alternate option as well. So using Slack apps, exploring the Slack app directory, and enhancing productivity with apps. So these are kind of the things we're going to talk about next. Installing and managing apps, and exploring the Slack app directory. So just kind of an idea of where we're going to head next with our Slack tour. So maybe we'll pop to slide 29 and just talk a little bit about canvases. So I'm going to describe the image here. It's the Slack screen with the Canvas button selected on that sidebar. The main panel shows several templates available and that the user can choose from to start their Canvas. So Canvas is really a collaborative workspace. It's very easy to set up in Slack. It's used for many purposes. So I've used it in the past for specific projects that I'm working on or specific subsections of a project. So like we have one at school that's just for annual planning for our student government cycle. It's also really helpful for folks to keep track, so you can go back and see what's been done in that specific workspace. It's nice because Canvas has cut down on the clutter within the channels. So sometimes even within like a community channel or community group, there's a lot of moving parts. So Canvases, I guess, sort of help move some of that away from that and into a more filtered and organized system. So maybe within Creative Connectors, a bunch of you are planning a workshop, so you have a Canvas for that. So that's where all your notes are. You can keep your meeting minutes there, files there. You can keep any documentation there. So it's sort of like a subgroup within your bigger community. Again, just to help sort of filter some of that content down. So creating and managing canvases. So we're going to talk about steps to create a canvas and viewing and editing canvases in this section as well. One of the things I think is really important around sort of the steps to creating canvas, just to note that some of the some of these features are not accessible, so maybe getting one of your team members that's supporting you to help with that. The steps to create a canvas, you're going to tap on Canvas. There should be a button to create. You can name it, and then you can add people as well. What I wanted to say earlier that's really important as well is that sometimes you will need permission to add people to a specific Slack community or Slack channel. So for example, with Creative Connectors, I know one of the things when I got my Slack invitation, I wanted to try and see if I could add another email address that I had just to see if it worked. And you may need an administrator's permission to do that. So what you'll want to do there is just type a message in that box that says add a note for your administrator, and then they'll know why you want to add someone to a specific community. If people are already in the community, so for example, Creative Connectors, you could certainly add them to a canvas, but just to note, if you're sort of doing internal, external work within Slack and collaborating with people perhaps in and out of the community, that might pop up. So creating is pretty easy. So from a channel or direct message, click the canvas icon, and then you'll start a new canvas. You can also create standalone canvases from the sidebar, and then click that plus button, and it'll say add. So managing collaborations is really key to effective collaboration, and you can set permissions so folks can add or edit or view that canvas. So that just depends on who's in your team, and you can hover over more to sort your canvases within that sidebar. So in Canvas, you can add media for everyone to view or hear. It's collaboration in real time, like I said. And again, it does integrate with other Slack features and apps.
It does, Elizabeth, it does look like I'm trying to create a canvas,
Mhm.
and it looks like it's like canvases are created like, because we have a free version, right?
Okay.
So I don't, it says canvases created on their own are view only.
Yeah, so I think in the free version, I feel like you can create one, but I don't know that other people can interact with it. I don't have the free version of Slack, so because I have it through school, so my setup might be a little bit different.
Right, okay. Yeah. So I'll give it a try. I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, and if you
Yeah.
do, I'd love to be invited to your canvas. Would you invite me to your canvas? I hope you would. I feel like you
If
would.
you can, oh, so
Awesome.
you'll be able to see it, but not like
Yeah, that's what I
change it.
think with the
Yeah,
free one. I don't have a free Slack account, so with mine, when I invite somebody, they can edit. But you can also set those permissions too, just like you can with Google. So you can set whether somebody can comment, view, or edit within a canvas.
okay.
Yeah. Um, I know for me, sometimes I find that the comment feature is very helpful. So if people want to make suggestions on changes, they can. But I find if you give people editing permission, there's too many editors, it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
So maybe what we'll do is go to summary of key points, if that works, which is slide 33. So we talked a little bit about the Slack basics and how to use it. So we talked about direct messages, we talked about channels. So channels are again things like your social, your announcements, your what other channels do we have in there? You might have one for specific events. I know there's one on mine that for my school one that says upcoming meetings. So those are your channels, for example. We talked about some of the accessibility features, and I provided a link within the PowerPoint presentation that hopefully folks will view that brings them to the accessibility help page. We talked about key functionalities as well as integration with other apps like Google Drive and Zoom.
I'm wondering, Elizabeth, like, did you talk a bit about how the huddle works?
Yeah, so those are like when I've used huddles, it's been specific like groups that I'm in, like groups, DM groups. And then the huddle like was where one person would like call the group. That's how I've used huddles in the past. So again, like that group call, as opposed to doing like a Zoom or Teams meeting. There's probably other features of the huddle that I'm less familiar with, but that's the one that I have used the most.
So is it an audio call or a video call or both?
I've only ever used the audio call feature. I think there is a video call feature as well, but I haven't played around with that.
Yes, there is. You can do either or. You can have both on, or just
Yeah.
select if you want if you have a preference.
Yeah. And I think the person making the call, like when you make that call, you can choose which one it is. And then what's nice about the audio is if people are like, if you're getting a call and you're not expecting it, you might pick it up on your phone and not want like have the setup to have your video on. So that's kind of the nice feature about choosing.
Wow.
Yeah. The other thing with the voice messages is I always think of them as a little bit like Mission Impossible. So like you can keep them or you can just set them kind of to disappear after a certain amount of time if you're not wanting, because they take up space. So if someone sends you a really long voice message, the other thing that you can do with it, which is really fun, is you can send it. So if you wanted to like email yourself a recording of the voice message, you could, which is super fun. If there's no other questions and comments, one thing I might do is remind folks again, because we're here today with Creative Connector. I might remind folks that again, if you want to sign up, creativeconnector.art, build your profile, which I can tell you is fully accessible. I did it. It's a lot of fun. And then when you get that welcome email, like I said, there will be a lot of really helpful information to just welcome you to the community, including an opt-in to Slack. So you'll click that, and don't worry if you don't get something right away, but you will get an invitation to Slack. Again, check your junk mail. And then from there, you can either create your own Slack account if you don't have one, or you can sign in. I also should tell you that if you're using Gmail or Facebook, there'll be an option on that says sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook, and you can use those options if you don't feel like remembering yet another password. That is an option as well if you want to go through that process to engage with Slack.